Our guest for today is Mike Bires, founder of Nutrition Faktory. Nutrition Faktory has built a serious operation across e-commerce and retail, and they also run a wholesale site. Before we go into just a quick context for our listeners, can you just give more information about who you are? What's your current GMV right now?
Last year we did, I think,
Channel is like one of your biggest revenue source right now. What was your overall experience of that entire COVID duration?
there was a couple of franchisees that had opened some new locations right before that happened.
What kind of protein typically you guys sell? Like, what are like those 2-3 things you would advise them based on your experience if they are just getting started, or if they are at, let's say, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million GMV and aiming to cross that 10 million GMV? The biggest lesson you've learned the hard way in e-commerce operations. Hello, and welcome to the SaaS podcast. And this is the Shopify Merchant Edition, Season 1, Episode 1. I'm your host, Yuvraj Kevte, the founder of the SaaSup.com, an independent platform curating the top 10 Shopify apps across all categories and helping merchants make better tooling decisions and negotiating app pricing on their behalf. We also vet agencies and freelancers. If you guys need any store development or custom requirement, make sure you go to the SaaSup.com and check us out. On the show, we go behind the scenes with Shopify merchants and operators building the real businesses. These are candid conversations, no fluff, no surface level stories, and a lot of practical lessons which you can apply in your own e-com business. Before I introduce our today's guest, I really wanted to give a shout out to our podcast sponsors, which is Apploy Mobile App Builder. Apploy helps Shopify brands of all sizes convert their sites into a mobile app instantly. No drag and drop, no coding required whatsoever. The main USP of Apploy is that it helps you retain your UI UX, all the custom work done on your site, plus all the third-party apps that you use are already working on the app right out of the box. And the reason this is super important is very simple. As an e-commerce brand, you invest heavily on your storefront. You customize your theme, you build workflows, you use a wide set of apps, and you create a stack that really works for you. Now, when you try to launch an app with most app builders, the biggest bottleneck is the UI UX parity and the support for these third-party apps. You either have to change your entire stack to match the general app builder's limitations, or you pay hefty customization fees to add these integrations for your apps you already rely on. That eats at time. It increases the cost of ownership of the app significantly, and the way Apploy builds your app is it connects directly to your Shopify storefronts and it scales automatically as your business scales. So if you are looking for an app builder which not only changes when you change your theme, not only supports any future apps that you use, Apploy is the right app builder you need to look at. That's what makes Apploy a really strong choice for brands who care about branding, care about user experience, and want to exact the same features on both their websites and mobile app. And one more thing, if you want to build a mobile app, today you can avail a 25% discount on the Apploy listed pricing plan by either using the coupon code TheSaaSHub, or just click on the link which is there in the show notes and the discount will be auto applied. Awesome. Now, our guest for today is Mike Bires, founder of Nutrition Faktory, a Shopify Plus merchant based out of United States. Nutrition Faktory has built a serious operation across e-commerce and retail, and they also run a wholesale site, which means the system matters to them. In this episode, we are going to talk to Mike about what it takes to operationalize a B2C plus a B2B on Shopify, what breaks as you grow, and how to build a process that scale. Mike, welcome to the show.
How's it going?
Doing well, Mike, and we are super excited to have you on the show. Before we go into just a quick context for our listeners, can you just give more information about who you are, a bit about Nutrition Faktory, what you sell, and how does the business look like today across all channels?
Sure. So Cliff Notes version is I'm born and raised in Ohio, was in the nutrition space as a kid, working at a health food store. Opened a couple stores when I was young, actually bought them from the guy I worked for, and then moved out to Southern California to kind of chase the franchise opportunity. It didn't go well. I was, thought I knew everything and learned I didn't know a whole lot. So I was fortunate though. One of my biggest competitors bought my store that was struggling. I joined his team, became his VP of operations, learned a ton about the industry. I was his purchaser, so I met other brand owners, and really that's when I really kind of learned a lot about the industry, and really did start to become more of an expert in the space, like I thought I was when I first moved there, which I wasn't. But and then from there, I got offered a position as a national sales director on the brand side. So that's when I kind of migrated from retail over to the brand side of the business, which was exciting. I was always interested in it. Traveled all over the country. I think I've been to 48 of the 50 states now, and just was going to every top retailer in the country, seeing what they were doing, trying to sell them our brand of supplements. And then from there, I joined some friends of mine, and we started a brand called Motivate. I was the president there. I kind of headed up sales. It was three of us. One of us kind of handled manufacturing, one of us handled marketing, and one of us handled sales. So my role was sales. So I kind of did the same thing I did when I was at the previous brand, travel all over, try to get people to bring in our brand, really dove into the e-com side at that point. Started to hire some influencers, and the brand took off as a kind of a direct-to-consumer brand. So that was my first taste of D2C and just the power of influencers and how impactful that could be for a brand. And then from there, I moved to Tennessee, and just saw a need where I moved here to Murfreesboro, Tennessee. It's about 30 minutes south of Nashville, and I was still into supplements. I still owned Motivate, and just kind of, saw a need for a good retail store. I was looking all over, and there was some decent stores, but so a typical entrepreneur, I was like, well, there's no great stores here. I'll open one in the town I live in. Opened it, right. And then from there, just had people coming in that loved it. They were like, hey, I live in this city. I'd love to open one of these in my city. And before I knew it, we literally went from 0 to 12 locations in our first 18 months of business, which was insane. And it was just for people who came into the store, loved it, and wanted to open one in their town, which I thought was a really cool testament to the business model.
Absolutely.
And then from, COVID hit, and we kind of paused the brick and mortar side, and I turned heavily into e-com to try to keep everybody employed. Dabbled in a lot of different strategies. Kind of, we talked about it earlier before this podcast. Was going to start a podcast, started a foods line, had all these ideas. But the one thing we did was we started buying in bulk and warehousing everything ourselves and distributing to all of our franchisees to make their lives easier. Selling to gyms, doing a lot more on the wholesale side. And that's when kind of our e-com exploded. And then fast forward to today, we've got one of the top TikTok shops in the e-com space. We've got one of the top websites in the e-com space. We've got the biggest sports nutrition store in the world. And we've still got 10 locations across the state of Tennessee, one in Kentucky. And we're going strong. So that's where we're at today.
Wow, that's actually just crazy. Not just your entire journey, but also the kind of experiences you had working, for another brand and then going ahead and setting up yours. Mm-hmm. That really nails it. If I may ask, and if you're okay sharing, what's your current GMV right now?
Last year we did, I think, 11 million.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah. So, 11 million all in, about 50-50 across e-com in our stores.
Got it. And then if I have to ask you, like you have a retail store, you have an online store, you also have a mobile app.
Yeah.
You also do franchising, like on the side of distribution.
Yeah.
What channel is like one of your biggest revenue source right now?
Our superstore is crazy, being that it's the biggest in the world. It does crazy numbers that most retail stores don't do. So that's a crazy revenue stream for us. But outside of that location, e-com has become a huge source of revenue for us. I mean, it's our backbone of our business, I guess you'd say. It's what's allowed me to build my team, to hire more people. And it's definitely our most consistent, sales channel for sure.
Got it. You mentioned something about COVID, and if I have to recollect, I think that's when most of the e-com stores kind of not only hit bottleneck, but also kind of blew significantly. I think no one was going outdoors. Brick and mortar stores were literally dying, and e-com and online shopping was just booming. What was your overall experience of that entire COVID duration?
Yeah, it was rough. I mean, we lost there was a couple of franchisees that had opened some new locations right before that happened. So they had to close their locations, just based on timing. Like normally, that first 6 months of your business is huge, and they had no customers that were outside shopping. I always feel guilty saying it, but for us, it was for for the corporate side of Nutrition Faktory, it was, just from a straight business perspective, it was one of the best things that ever happened to us because it did force us to explore other avenues to generate revenue. How the saying is like, when you make the most progress when you're uncomfortable, and
Right.
it made us uncomfortable very quickly. So it forced me to look at other opportunities and just try to find another source of revenue. And again, it forced me to like jump in with both feet and understand ecom. I think as an old, I'm an old guy, right? So I was always like, ecom, social media, like, I always understood the value of social media, but ecom, I was kind of like, our website's just there to show some of the brands we carry, but not necessarily a critical piece of our business. And very quickly, I saw just the virility of it, just how very quickly there were certain products that I'd sell 200 in a day. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, how is that even happening? It just seems so unrealistic because you're so used to seeing customers come into your store at a consistent pace. Your average nutrition store probably sees, let's say a slow store sees 20 people a day, a busy store sees 50 people a day. So like to see 200 of the same items sell in the same day, it was just like surreal. So it really motivated me to jump in and really understand, a lot of the kind of what we're talking about today, like a lot of the different apps and what else can I do for my store that can help me? And Shopify and the apps that complement it. It's crazy what you can accomplish, even again, as a old guy who didn't really grow up knowing ecom. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And then I do have a question. I was just talking to my partner the other day, and we were talking, and then the reason I'm asking you is this, because I kind of neglected my health the entire last decade. Last year, I left the job, started working on consulting, building on the SaaS hub, and now doing the podcasting thing.
Yeah.
I think now I have enough time to spend much time on my energy, eat clean, think about nutrition, think about protein supplements and everything.
Yeah.
So when we were actually discussing about which protein supplement to go on, and I think a lot of people actually don't even understand what's isolate protein, what's wheat protein, what's completely vegan or natural protein, and all of that stuff. What kind of protein typically you guys sell? I mean, not just protein, but what kind of supplements you guys typically sell, and are there any real key factors people actually need to look at when they are purchasing supplement? I mean, does it change on their goal? Does it change on what they want to achieve? How do they go about selecting the right one?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we sell everything from vitamins, supplements, herbs. We're probably known most for the sports nutrition side, which would be pre-workouts, muscle builders, protein, creatine, all those testosterone boosters, all that type of stuff. But we do carry multivitamins, fish oils, all that good stuff as well. And I think for your average person, I preach this since I started, and it's because when I worked at a health food store, he preached everybody needs a good multivitamin and a good fish oil because it's impossible to get all your nutrients through food, especially with everything being processed. There's not even as much nutrients in the soil anymore. So you definitely want a multivitamin to it's kind of like an insurance policy. It just kind of fills in the gaps on what you're missing throughout the day. And then a fish oil, barring, unless you're eating a significant amount of fish per day, it's hard to get enough of your omegas without supplementing with the fish oil. So nobody wants to start with those because they're not sexy. Everyone's like, no, I want a creatine or I want a testosterone booster. And it's like, I always tell people it's boring, but start with the basics, which is, I preach a good multi. People have been, kind of tricked because of marketing with brands like Centrum and One Daily and stuff that use synthetic vitamin E, which is insane to me. Like, vitamin E's cheap. Why are you using synthetics just to try to save money? And the potencies, they trick people because the recommended daily allowances are so bad nowadays. They're 100. You'll look down the left-hand side and they'll say 100% of everything, but those were created 100 years ago plus, and it was really just created just to prevent scurvy. Like, that was it. It wasn't prevented for optimal health if you're active and you're trying to be. So, you look at we should get 1,000 milligrams minimum of vitamin C per day. I think the RDA is 50 milligrams, So I think that's the big thing that a lot of people don't focus on because it's not fun, it's not sexy, but a good multivitamin and fish oil. And then I say after that, try to get 5 to 6 meals in per day, eat every 3 hours, 5 to 6 times a day, which is challenging for most. And, you can do food. I always say I'm the worst salesperson ever for my stores, but like, if you can eat every 3 hours and you have the budget, because it's expensive to eat 6 times a day, And it's hard based on our lives and our being busy, right?
Right.
So that's where supplements play a role. If you can buy a good protein supplement and you can eat 3 meals a day, you can eat your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but then in between breakfast and lunch, you can have a protein shake. In between lunch and dinner, you can have a protein shake. And then right before bed, you could have a protein shake. You know, protein shakes average, they've gone up, but let's say $1 or $2 per serving. So even $2, like where, you know, you go to McDonald's and get the cheapest meal they have that's horrible for you, and it's going to cost you a lot more than $2, right? So if you're dedicated to nutrition, I think that it's important that you try to get as much as you can through food, because food is going to be king. But then when you can't, you try to supplement, and it's going to save you money, and it's going to be more effective. And then when it comes to the brands, I just tell people to stick with brands that are credible. You know, the house brands, it's nothing against Costco or Sam's Club, but you know, those types of places, Walmart's, they ask for a watered down version of a supplement from these brands, even if it's a brand name. You know, there's brands that we carry at our health food, at our nutrition stores, and that same pre-workout might be at Costco or Walmart, but if you turn it around and look at the ingredients, they've watered it down because Walmart's trying to hit a price point. They know that their consumer isn't going to pay $40 for a pre-workout. They want to pay 20 or 25. So they go to the brand and they say, hey, we want the packaging, we want the labeling, we even want the name, but how can we make this cheaper? And then the brand has to say, well, I could take out this, this, and this, but that's pretty much what's making it go. And the retailer's like, hey, we don't care. We just want to be able to say, we've got this supplement from this brand and it's got this name on it. Our consumers will buy it. So, you know, obviously I'm biased, but do yourself a favor and shop at a nutrition store. Don't feel like you're getting the same thing when you're buying your supplements at a grocery store or a Walmart or a Costco or a Sam's Club, because it's just not happening.
No, absolutely. That's true. And I think it's not just about these stores, but I think geographically also, if you look at it, for an example, if I have to quote India, like if the same product, if it's in US or UK, you would see they use premium ingredients, they use everything that's as per health and food safety guidelines. But the moment they're building the same product for Indian version, they literally strip it out with all the good items, replace it with palm oil, subpar ingredients, and the same product, if it's costing $5 in US, it'll cost $1 in India, because they have literally replaced the good items with the bad ones, and people are happy about using it because of the brand. I think
it's crazy. It's amazing what happens, but it's scary. But that's my best advice. Like I said, I think the more you can eat food and eat obviously healthy food, the better, you know, but again, it's challenging. But I think frequent meals every 3 hours is a really good strategy for sure.
I kind of was just on the website the other day, and I noticed that apart from vitamins, supplements, and nutrition, you also have a healthy meals option now. How did that pivot happen?
Yeah, that was one of the things during COVID that we looked at. It's actually a pretty cool story. And we tried it, and it didn't go great. You know, we had different co-ops that could make our food, or, you know, partners, and it never went well. And then long story short, a friend of mine, his name's Alex Ballou, he went on Hell's Kitchen, and he actually won Hell's Kitchen. And then he came back and he was like, I won. And I'm like, holy cow. I mean, he won a reality TV show, and he's like this amazing chef. And I said, well, shoot, maybe we should revisit Nutrition Faktory Foods and see how it goes. So we found a really good partner that manufactures for us in Nashville. Alex created all the recipes, and we started Nutrition Faktory Foods, and very quickly it exploded. It took off. It became the go-to meal prep for the whole city of Murfreesboro, which is a huge, over 200,000 people. And, you know, our meals are affordable. They start at $9.99, and we try to hold that price point for most of our meals. You know, most of our meals have 40 to 50 grams of protein, but they're not low calories. They're 400 to 500 calories in a lot of cases, but they're a true meal, right? Like some people will say, man, I love your meals because I'll buy it and I'll eat half of it for lunch and I'll eat half of it for dinner. Where a lot of the meal prep out there just isn't, you know, it's not satisfying, right? You just don't feel like you ate anything. So I think that, again, kind of what I'm preaching right now is how important it is to eat food. So it seems silly that we didn't have our own line of food, you know? So when that opportunity came up, I was like, man, I think that was always my fear, was making food that even I didn't want to eat. But now, you know, I don't know if you can hear them coming through because they come through on my computer. Can you hear those texts when they come through?
No.
Okay, good. Right now, my wife's texting me saying, "What meals do you want from the store?" So, because literally our whole family, I've got a 4-year-old, I've got a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, and then my wife and I, and she'll go there every Tuesday and pick up fresh meals for our family, and that's what we eat throughout the week. Because you throw them in the microwave for 2 minutes, they're literally made fresh Monday morning, and they're healthy, and no crappy ingredients, and that's kind of what we survive on. So it's nice having food that my family trusts, including my kids, and we've never really had that before. So I think that was a big piece of fitting in kind of what we're preaching we can now offer, rather than telling people go somewhere else and get this or go do this.
Right.
It's been good for us. Yeah.
So that's really amazing, because even I could relate to this. Like me, my wife, and I also have 2 kids. Like my daughter is 4. I mean, she's just gonna turn 4 in this April, and my son is 10. So in between 4 of us, meal preps are one of the hardest things to do.
Oh, brutal.
And I think, I mean, if you cook something, they don't want to eat it. They probably want to eat something else. So I think what you are offering is actually not just balanced meals, but something which is predictable, but still gives you a lot of variety to choose from, pick from for the entire family. So I think this is amazing. I noticed you guys are only doing it local delivery or just pick up. Like, how are you currently managing that? If I may ask?
So we're lucky. We actually deliver, because we have a route where we deliver to all of our stores across the state of Tennessee every week. We'll actually deliver our meals once a week, so every store has fresh meals. We've looked at shipping them nationally. Like Clean Eats is a good brand that we carry frozen, and they actually ship frozen meals nationally. But it's hard to make the meals affordable when they're frozen, and it's hard to keep the meals as premium as we'd like them. So our goal long term, if we open a store tomorrow in Arizona, we would try to find a manufacturer in Arizona that could execute our recipes and try to get a cluster of stores, let's say in Arizona, and have them manufacture for all of those stores. So the goal is still to have fresh meals every Monday morning at our stores, and then we actually rotate them Thursdays. We rotate them to the freezer, and we sell them at a reduced price for frozen, because fresh is still better. But
Right.
But yeah, it's just one of those things that executing on a national level, it's probably doable, but it's just probably not worth, like, it's not our focus. So it's not, not an investment that we want to make. We still want to focus on shipping, vitamins, supplements, all the things we're good at. But anywhere that we have a store, we want to be able to service that community with healthy, fresh meals.
Nice. And do customers get to decide when they want to get the products delivered? Because I don't see any date picker, or I don't see any pickup options.
Yeah. So right now, if somebody, we do, fast local delivery. So if somebody were to hop on our website today and they were within our delivery area and they ordered, I mean, we deliver their meals today, so
Yes.
we're even on DoorDash and stuff like that. So we actually deliver fresh same day locally. So that's kind of how we execute the delivery side of things. That's why we don't put a picker. The only thing that happens if somebody orders on a Friday, we'll contact them and let them know. We try to let people know that our meals are made fresh on Monday mornings. So we deliver Monday through Thursday. And I don't know if it's on our website, if it's on our checkout, but somewhere there's a notification that lets customers know that little delivery schedule.
Got it. Now, as the business grow, I mean, for the listeners who are probably new to e-commerce and are kind of trying to work their way through setting up the brands, or even someone who's already there, I wanted to understand what kind of challenges typically people see as the business grows. Like, is it the operations that gives up? Is it the inventory that gives up? Or what actually breaks when you try to scale at the level which you guys are at?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest thing for most people to manage is probably cash flow. I think nobody realizes if your business, let's say your business does $1 million last year and it does $2 million the following year. Well, if you run slim margins, let's say you run a 30 to 40% profit margin, which is pretty common in reselling. If you're, let's say on the low end, 30% profit margin, if I do $2 million this year up from $1 million last year, that means that I'm selling an extra $700,000 in inventory to generate an extra $300,000 in profit. So when you kind of do that math, that's still $700,000 in inventory that I got to make sure that I have on my shelves to sell. So that $700,000 has to come from somewhere. I mean, granted, you're profiting $300,000, but you also are investing in more people and, operations to manage the increase in growth. So I think that's the biggest challenge that people don't plan on. They're like, why did I grow my business and I have less money in my bank account than I've ever had? Especially without investors. I've never had investors. It's always just been me. So I think one of the biggest challenges is definitely making sure you have enough capital to grow your business the way you want to grow it, or having resources where you can go out and get money from people, or, as loans or whatever it may be. But I think that's probably the biggest challenge. And then trying to figure out how many people do I need to grow my business. I've went out, a couple of years ago, we were at an all-time high in payroll. We went out and got really high-end people that I felt could grow my business. And when I make the mistake of, I hire people, and if they claim they're an expert, I let them do their thing. I'm very hands-off, probably to a fault. It's probably I lead like I like to be led. Like if somebody hires me to do a job, I'm like, leave me alone. I'll do it well. If I have questions, I'll come to you.
Right.
And I think that's how I lead people, because that's how I like to be led. And that's a flaw of mine, because there's people that are like, man, like, is there anything specific you want me to do? I'm like, no, I hired you to grow my website. Like, go grow my website. And, ironically, letting a couple of those people go over the years, they were great people, great employees. I don't know that they did anything wrong. I just don't know that they had the knowledge to grow the business. They just had the knowledge to do what they do well. So the more I've gotten involved and been more hands-on, and the more that I've attacked growth myself, the more successful we've been. Like our payroll is probably the lowest it's ever been, and our revenue is the highest it's ever been. So I think maybe sometimes I sell myself short, because again, I'm, like I said earlier, I'm an old guy. I don't know how to do that. But the reality is with AI and all the resources out there, like even as an old guy, like I can do anything that a kid can do. A 25-year-old expert can do in something. I just have to put the effort into learning it. Like TikTok Shop is a good example of that. Was totally green to that. Didn't know a thing about it. And now I would consider myself somewhat of an expert on TikTok Shop, So I think it's just, a lot of times it's just effort and diving in full go. But those would be the two challenges to wrap it up, would be cash flow, and then managing people correctly to where you're not overspending on people that you don't need, but you're not underspending on people that are necessary to grow your business.
That's awesome. Now, I have a $2,000 question for you. And the reason why I'm saying $2,000 is you guys are on Shopify Plus, right?
Yeah.
Why Shopify Plus? I mean, you could have gone ahead with the lower plan tiers. Like, why did Shopify Plus make sense to you?
Ironically, back then when I did it, I was super inexperienced on the Shopify side. I had a e-com director, I guess you'd call him, but he was kind of he was a friend of mine from the industry. He was probably spending 10, 15 hours a week on my website. And we were looking at rebuy at the time. And that's when rebuy was big, being pushed heavily, I guess. And you were just seeing it everywhere, and how it could grow your business and upsells in the cart and all these things. And that's when he said, hey, rebuy isn't that expensive, but to get rebuy and to be able to do things at checkout, you're going to have to upgrade to Shopify Plus. And I said, well, how much do you think rebuy can generate? And he's like, I don't know, $10,000 plus a month. And I said, well, that's $3,000 in profit, so that would pay for itself, right? And he's like, I guess so. So I was like, well, let's try it and see how it goes. And, kind of like once you do it, there's no turning back, So that's kind of where we're at. I don't even know to this day I'm sure there's a lot of benefits to it that I don't even understand, but given what our website does now, it 100% makes sense. And again, I think the biggest thing it does is it doesn't limit what our partners can do on our website. And I never want to be limited on, I never want to, trade dollars for growth and say, right, oh, I don't want to spend that money. We might not be able to grow as fast, but who cares? I'd always rather just pay the money and let our partners be able to get after it and grow our business. So that's kind of where that was high level what my thinking was, but I understand it more today than I did then, but I would still make the same decision for sure.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about something which is very crucial, but most often people just ignore it, which is the app stack decisions or discipline. I think most merchants adds app reactively to their store. Something breaks, add an app. You need a feature, you go ahead and add another app, right?
Yeah.
When you evaluate an app from the Shopify App Store, what are the things you look at? What are the things you think are kind of a deal breaker for you? And what are the typical reasons you would remove a particular app, and what's your current tech stack like?
Yeah. So I think initially, to kind of go back, initially when I was learning about apps, a lot of it was cold emails to me, to be honest. And a lot of it was kind of apps being fed to me that I didn't even know I needed. There was basic ones like a chat, So I went out and found the cheapest one when I started because I'm like, oh, free or $5 a month,
Right.
And then, through marketing, I evolved to like Gorgeous, just because you see it everywhere, So I think my process, to be honest, was more when I was new to Shopify. I was very reactive, I guess, but it was more reactive to emails and people pitching me products or me seeing them. And that was back when, the Yacht Pose, the Gorgeous, the Rebuys, all those kind of were just in my face. I was like, ooh, that looks cool, like,
Right.
and I would go to the App Store, but I don't know that I was like, today would be a lot different. If I have a need, at that point, I would go to the App Store, I would look at reviews, would look at costs, but honestly, it's overwhelming. I don't know that, right now, and we talked about it earlier, a lot of the apps that I add to my store, I meet through the research calls that take place, because the App Store is too overwhelming. I don't know that it's something that I'm comfortable going on the App Store, typing in chat, and if I didn't know Gorgeous, for instance, and I just saw 40 of them, they all look great. I wouldn't even see 40, I'd see 400 of them, right? And they all look great. They all have good reviews. They're all around the same price point. I don't have the time to set up 400 calls to evaluate which one's best. So I think you just get crippled with opportunity and you just don't do it. You're just like, never mind. I'll just look at that later because
Right.
you can't. So I think that's kind of what the App Store has become for probably a lot of people in my position is it's crippling in a way where you don't, there's no way to effectively evaluate that many apps. It's just
Absolutely.
impossible. So I think that's where we're at today. I mean, I think we have the fewest apps we've ever had. We obviously Gorgeous is a big partner of ours. Okendo's our reviews. We use, Wonderman on the back end. We use Klaviyo. We actually switched. We used to use Attentive on our SMS, but we kind of put everything in one catch-all now with Klaviyo and for our email and SMS stack and even push notifications. So we have a pretty basic stack these days. More than we've ever had. I think there was a time where we probably had 50 and now we might have, let's say 10.
Right.
And we kind of keep it simple, make sure our website runs fast. There was probably a year ago or 2 years ago when I switched to like a Shopify 2.0 site is when I was able to eliminate, that's actually when I eliminated Rebuy and we leveraged the Shopify's native bundles app and, Shopify's native upsells and did some different things that, again, aren't ideal. But that's a good example. There's probably apps right now that would help my website that I don't have the time to go out and find, and I'm not necessarily motivated to go out and look for, because there's no effective way to evaluate that many apps. So we just kind of move on with the way that we're doing things, and it's been fine, and that's kind of where we're at today.
No, absolutely. I think the lesser apps you use is better because
Yeah.
the app literally sometimes could cripple because if your app is not talking to the other app that you're using, there could be conflicts. And I think
Absolutely.
biggest problem today with App Store is the overwhelm. The overwhelm is what stops founders to go to the App Store and find out the right ones. And that was exactly the inspiration behind the SaaS Hub, and that's why we proactively would reach out to all the 25,000 plus apps or whatever number of apps are out there. We do a demo with them. We try to understand how they are solving problems differently, and we only rank and track top 10 apps across all categories. So just making it very simple. If someone wants to handpick an app, they just go through those curated, vetted lists, so they don't have to go through multiple of those apps. For the listeners who are listening here, what I would do is the categories which Mike has mentioned, I'll actually go ahead and create a dedicated Nutrition Faktory page on the SaaS Hub. I'll link it to Mike's profile, his LinkedIn. Plus, I'll also link the discount that we have available. It is TSH30, which gives you a 30% discount if you go and buy any of the products and supplements from the Nutrition Faktory website. And all the categories which Mike have just mentioned, I will comb through our app repositories and I will add all the curated and vetted apps across all those categories. That way, if you want to replicate the exact same tech stack, category wise, which Nutrition Factory is leveraging and how they were able to grow to a massive $10 million in revenue, you could actually go through those apps and add it to your store. Now, coming to the next part, you did mention you have a B2B focus as well. I would really love to understand when you are running B2B, what is the most crucial and important aspect? Because when you do B2B, there are bulk purchases, there are repeat purchases, margins are again sometimes a huge factor of it. How are you currently managing all that? And on top of that, the inventorying part of it too. What are some challenges?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. So we use SparkLayer, is actually the app we use for the wholesale channel. So anytime we add a new product to our system, we create we put in obviously our cost of goods, we put in our retail price, but then we put in a markup. In a lot of cases, we can do it two ways. We can either do it manually, but we have a system set up with SparkLayer right now where we mark up our product based on a percentage, based on if you're a gym, if you're one of our franchisees. So it's pretty simple to manage because it's pretty much we're putting our cost of goods in there and it's doing the math for us, which is kind of nice. So that part is relatively easy because it's just part of our workflow. We add a new item, we add our pricing to Shopify, our cost to SparkLayer, and then we've got everything kind of built, automated from there. When one of our franchisees or gyms logs into their Shopify account and gets why it's called SparkLayer, there's a layer over top of our Shopify store where they can see what their pricing looks like. And then, they have a custom checkout that's built for them. You can put net 30, you can put credit card, you can give whatever options or eliminate whatever options you don't. And then on the back end, we have a order day deadline and delivery day deadline. That makes it really simple. It goes back to what we talked about earlier. The cash flow side is relatively challenging, but we use an app called Inventory Planner, managing our inventory, and that app is what we kind of feed our wholesale sales and our retail sales into that app. It does all the analyzing, and then it gives us some type of replenishment recommendations. So that's kind of the stack we use for that is really the SparkLayer Inventory Planner stack. It helps us manage that. And then, like I said, on the cash flow side, it's still challenging because when you're growing, it's still like, okay, where are we going to get money from today? So that's been the only piece that probably is more unrelated to an app. That's me making sure that I'm either increasing the line of credit partnerships that we have with our local bank, or personally funding the business and putting some money back in, and stuff like that. But really, with those two apps, we're pretty effectively able to manage the wholesale side of the business.
Nice. And then for people who are probably just thinking of getting started with wholesale, what are those 2-3 things they really need to be cautious about? Because if they don't follow that, their entire wholesale operation could break.
I mean, I think the biggest thing that people probably mismanage is paying attention to their cost of goods and not updating their pricing when there's a change, right? So if my cost goes from $10 to $14 and I've got it listed at $12 on my wholesale portal, and I sell 1,000 of those units next month, I sold 1,000 units and lost $2 a unit. I literally took the time to deliver products and had a $2,000 loss. And then you quantify that across 20 items or 50 items. So I think that would be the biggest thing is consistently paying attention to, and obviously nowadays with tariffs and inflation and everything, cost of goods is ever changing. So I think that's a big one. I think that's the big one, to pay attention to not only your cost of goods, but your processing fees, your cost of labor, and make sure that the wholesale side of your business is truly a profitable endeavor. Because I think the number is somewhere around 10% is almost break even, because you're paying credit card fees, you're paying labor, you're paying boxes, you're paying a delivery guy. Right around 10% is your break even number. So, I mean, a lot of people are probably like, oh, I'll just mark my stuff up 5%, sell wholesale. And it's like, well, at the end of the year, you probably lost 5% of whatever your revenue was. So pay attention to those. The actual profitability of that piece of the business is huge.
I mean, over the decade, I've spoken to, I think, thousands of e-commerce brands when I was working as a seller in the Shopify ecosystem. I think most of the time, I have seen brands who focus on one particular channel and goes zero down on it, grow very well. But of lately, brands are considering omni-channel to be a very good channel. And I believe you truly are a very good example of going and dabbling through multiple channels. You have a mobile app, you have an online store, you have a wholesale operation, brick and mortar stores and everything. What is that one thing that helps you stay consistent across all of these channels? Because multiple channels means multiple opportunities of getting distracted, multiple opportunities where things could go wrong, multiple opportunities where, you probably just either forget something or something breaks. Like, how are you staying so consistent across all of these channels?
Yeah, ironically, Shopify has been a big part of that, right? Like, everything that we do runs through Shopify, everything. If we get an order from TikTok Shop, we currently use an app called OwnBase. I know that Shopify has a native app, but we just use OwnBase because it's been a good partner for us. And it's inexpensive and it works. So we use that. So any TikTok order that comes in goes into Shopify. Any Amazon order that comes in goes into Shopify. Any Walmart.com order that comes in goes into Shopify. Any point of sale order goes through Shopify. Any wholesale order goes through SparkLayer, goes into Shopify. So I think that's been a really good way for us to manage everything. I think when it comes to focus, it's just putting the right people in charge of those channels. So my vice president is a superstar. He's my best friend since we were kids. He focuses on making sure that everything's going out the door, handles all of our shipping operations, and he also oversees our superstore, our retail store. But a lot of the shipping, it's all linked. Like, we got to make sure that all of our products are shipped to our TikTok customers, to our retail customers, to our wholesale customers. So we've got a really high level person that oversees that piece of the business. Then I've got Josh, who's been with me from the beginning. He actually oversees our whole customer care side of the business. So think about how important that is. That could be a bad TikTok customer. That could be a bad retail customer. That could be employees across all of our franchisees or corporate stores that have questions about supplements. He's a product expert. He's an expert on how to help customers, how to treat customers right. So we've dedicated a big part of our spend to those two guys, payroll spend. Those are two high-level employees that make sure all of our customers are taken care of, and then all of our stuff is getting shipped to these customers. That's my two biggest spends for this company, right? And then I handle the high-level Shopify piece. So I'm making sure that the apps that we need to use are being used. And then I have a TikTok guy as well that handles making all of our content for TikTok, posting videos for TikTok, executing these different challenges TikTok does, adding new products to TikTok, because TikTok Shop is one of our most lucrative channels for sure. So I think that's kind of how we do it. Is we have three, if you count me, four really good superstar employees that handle different aspects of the business, and we all do it really, 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 really good, and we really care about it because it's our livelihood. It's not a part-time person who's like, oh, I could take or leave this job. It's like, hey, this is my life, so I can't mess this up. And so we all work really hard at the things we do, and I think that recipe has been a good one for keeping everything hung on for sure.
Nice. Now let's talk about something which is like probably the blood of the entire operations in like the e-com side or the brick and mortar side or anything. I think traffic is one of the most primary part. If you don't have traffic, if you don't have footfall, people are not being able to go ahead and buy. Yep. How are you currently managing it? If it's a retail side, how are people knowing about your brand? What things are you doing? Or if it's an online store, are you leveraging performance marketing? How are you actually bringing in customers today?
Yeah, we spend most of our money on Google ad spend, a little bit on Bing as well. But Google ad spend, we have a partner called MAI. I met them on App Store Research, ironically. And they actually AI management. They're a system that manages our Google ad spend using AI. So instead of making 5 to 10 changes a month like an agency would do, they're making 50 plus changes a day. And you can imagine with a catalog like ours, it's 2,000 plus SKUs. That's huge because there's some where it's like, oh my gosh, we were spending all this money on the SKU and it's converting horribly because you're out of the main flavor that everybody wants. Right. But Google still sees it, even if we're out of, if somebody Googles Ghost energy drinks and because they want the new cotton candy flavor and we're out of cotton candy, well, Google still sees Ghost energy drinks. They go to our website, they click on it, we pay for them, and they like, oh, cotton candy, you don't have it. So they leave, right? So with MAI, it will see that same day and go, hey, we just spent a lot of money on these customers. This is not converting. Let's turn this off. But this one over here, we've only had 3 customers come today and they all converted. Let's pour some more gasoline on this fire and see if it can, do a little something for us. So that's been probably one of the biggest partnerships for me when it comes to growing the business. Because what I did was, I think everybody, going back to kind of, all the noise out there, not only in the app side of the business, but in the marketing side, everyone's like, well, you've got to build awareness on Meta, and then that awareness carries over, and then Google is bottom of the funnel. So people Google a product, they see, oh, Nutrition Factory, I saw their ad on Meta, so I'm going to convert it. And I'm like, wait a second, I don't really give a shit if anyone knows about us on Meta, because at the end of the day, I'm not. Now, if I was Mike's supplements and all I carried was Mike's creatine and Mike's vitamins and Mike's, but I'm essentially, I always give the example, if I was a shoe store, I carry Nike, I carry Adidas, I carry Under Armour. Nobody cares about Mike's shoe store, but they do care about the fact that I have the lowest price on the Nikes that they're looking for. So I don't need to see them on Meta because I want to see them on, when they're Googling Nike, Air Jordan, best price, I want to make sure that I'm the guy that pops up place, right? So I've pivoted a little bit, and I've spent most of my ad spend dollars on the Google side. And not only does that help our e-com business, but it also helps our stores, because when people locally Google a product and they see that Nutrition Factory has the best price on that product, and they go, oh shoot, I've got a Nutrition Factory right down the street from me, or they order on our website, and they live, we get people in Murfreesboro all the time that are like, oh wow, I've got a store down the street, but I'm going to order local delivery. We have a little 10-mile radius of local deliveries that we do. So I think that's been kind of our focus. And then TikTok, spending a lot of money on that channel when it comes to just people. We're pumping out like 15, 20 videos a day on TikTok,
Wow.
not a week. And so just imagine, like, that's a channel where we get a ton of awareness as well. And a lot of that's free traffic, because I'm paying the main person who runs that channel, but that's a fixed cost, and the more exposure we get. So that's kind of my stack is, we do have a little bit going on Meta just for local, like when there's a local sale or like a Black Friday or something like that. But for the most part, a lot of our focus is on the Google marketing, and that kind of naturally floods the local markets with Nutrition Factory awareness as well.
Wow, that's actually crazy. And then thanks a lot for sharing that. Do you also work with influencers?
Not really, because what happens is on the TikTok shop we do, because it's very simple. If we have a product that they like and nobody else is promoting it, they can actually drive people to our TikTok shop for that product. But what happens in the influencer world as a retailer or reseller, however you want to word it, is, let's say a brand like Bucked Up, huge brand, I don't know, 100 million, 500 million, billion, whatever they do, but they're a huge brand. So we may sign up we may see a Nutrition Factory customer of ours that loves Bucked Up, and we're like, hey, why don't we'll pay you, every time, we'll give you a code. If somebody comes to our website, you get a little kickback and all this good stuff. Well, what happens is they post about Bucked Up. The Bucked Up sales director sees it and goes, oh, this person loves Bucked Up. And it's not malicious. They're not attacking our customers like they want to steal our customers, but that's their job, is to see other people posting about their brand and
Right.
see if they want it. And again, I go back to the shoe example. If you were a basketball player, would you rather be sponsored by Nike, or would you rather be sponsored by Dick's Sporting Goods, right? You'd rather be sponsored by Nike. So if you're a Bucked Up fan and you're posting about it and you're sponsored by Nutrition Factory, and Bucked Up comes over and says, hey, you should join our team, you're like, heck yeah. So it became one of those investments that just isn't worth the while. It's something that we'd rather reward our good customers with free stuff during the holidays. If they want to give us a good review, talk about us, maybe a little referral program where they share with their friends and they get $5 off and their friend gets $5 off. But when it comes to influencers on the retail side, it's just something I feel like influencers are most valuable to somebody trying to build the brand side of the business where they own the brand, because
Right.
then if your product sells, it doesn't matter if it's selling at Nutrition Factory, if it's selling at buckedup.com, if it's selling at Walmart, you're still getting the benefit from it, so
Absolutely.
I feel like influencers fit the best for sure.
Got it. No, thanks a lot for that insight. I think that's truly amazing. There are probably three kind of people who are going to watch this podcast. One is people who are interested in launching their own e-com store, or people who already have an e-com store.
Yeah.
Second is Shopify app founders, like people who build these small plugins and
Yeah.
apps. And others would be agency operators. Now, from an e-commerce owner's perspective, what are like those 2-3 things you would advise them based on your experience, if they are just getting started, or if they are at, let's say, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million GMV and aiming to cross that 10 million GMV limit? What are those 2-3 word of advice you would want to share?
So for the actual merchant,
Yeah, for the merchants.
okay. So for the merchant, it sounds so simple, but it's really pay attention to those two things. Like traffic and conversion rate are the two things that I'm looking at consistently. I think it's, how can I get more people? Like, where's my, and I sound like Russell Brunson or Tony Robbins probably, but like, where is my target audience hanging out? And for me, it's Google shopping, right? Because they're looking for very specific items. But where's my target audience hanging out? How do I talk to those people and get them to come check out what I'm doing? And then how do I make sure when they come check out what I'm doing, that they convert and they buy something from me? I think that's It sounds like, again, such a simple thing, but until I really registered when I was listening or reading a Russell Brunson book, or maybe audiobook or both. But I just think it sounds so like some people, maybe Reddit's your place, maybe maybe Meta's your place, maybe TikTok Shop is your place, but it's kind of like figuring out where those people are hanging out and finding the best way and the most economical way to talk to those people. I think like Google isn't the cheapest way to talk to people, but for me, it's very simple because those people are at the bottom of the funnel and they convert into sales. I think there's a lot to be said about brand recognition when you're, again, on the brand side. And that is probably one of the most challenging pieces is like, how do you make yourself relevant in such a messy, like a space where thousands of other people are hanging out. So I guess in that respect, it would be find out where people are hanging out, find out the best way to talk to them, and make sure that you're sharing why you're unique and why you're different. Because otherwise you're just another protein company. You're just another retail store. You're just another shoe store, whatever. You're just another, so yeah. And then again, make sure when they come to your site, you're finding a really good way to convert, and again, when you're building a brand from zero, I'd say customers, any customer who's using your product is valuable. So if you can break even on those customers when you're building your business, break even. And then as you grow your business, really focus on profitability. I think that's something that goes out the window with a lot of people who get investors is like, oh, we'll just, you're trying to build to a top line revenue. For me and my type of people, like people that would relate to me most, if you're spending your own money or you don't have a lot of money, definitely focus on profitability, because it's ironic that the most growth I ever had in my life was when I eliminated 2 very valuable people to my company that were very good employees. But again, it makes you think differently. I said, okay, I'm going to make this year, I think 25 was my year that I'm going to make 2025 profitable. And by not having those people to lean on, it forced me to get my hands dirty again and really dive into every aspect of the business. And that was so valuable. And again, it just gives you a different perspective on, okay, should I really be focusing my energy over here, because it's not a profitable channel. It's not really getting us more exposure. So let me focus over here that's doing both of those, whatever. So I think that's, I know that's probably a lot more than 2 or 3, and I rank a lot.
Absolutely.
That would be my advice in a nutshell. I think that's that would be my best advice that I would, if I could do it all over again, I'd kind of follow those guidelines.
Awesome. And for someone who keeps on getting a lot of cold emails, sales calls, messages from Shopify apps or agencies or service providers, any word of advice so that the next time they try reaching out, they probably have more, humility. They probably understand the pain points and so on in a better way.
Yeah. You mean, so are you saying like how would they convert me? Like,
yes. Or what they should know about any e-com founder before they actually send out their next cold email?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, one, we get a lot of them. So, kind of the same concept. Make sure that your email is relevant and fast. Like, how can, and I think, I'm trying to think of any that have really caught my attention. I think the ones that work the best are, you obviously, a unique subject line goes a long way. And then almost like a video or a GIF or something that gives me a good understanding of how you can help quickly, because a lot of times it's opening an email and then unsubscribing, you know what I mean?
Right.
So you've got pretty much until I open that email, until my mouse pointer gets up to unsubscribe or down to unsubscribe to kind of get my attention. I think that's that's the hardest part. I think is just now I think 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, it was a lot different. But now, like we talked about, there's just so many apps that do the exact same thing. I don't know that cold emails are the path that I may even follow anymore. You know what I mean? I think it might be something like even finding partners, for instance, like you guys that can feature my app and make me stand out in a crowd of 10 rather than a crowd of 400 or 500, But that would be my best advice is, you've got to do something compelling in your subject line. And then that first sentence or that first GIF or that first video link or whatever it is has to be provide a lot of value and make me really feel like, And like I said, I think being unique is a big thing, because I don't care if it's like email marketing is a big one right now. I get 20 of those a day. Then, hey, let me build your first flow for free, and it's like, in my case, that's not going to work because I get 100 of those a day. I would spend all of my time just. So anyway, I think you want to make sure that, I guess it probably goes back to my last advice to the merchant. I guess that would be the moral of the story for everybody, right? Is like, make sure that you are making yourself unique, and make sure that you are getting that unique attribute across to the people that you're marketing to, because otherwise you're just another one, and it's like, why am I stopping at you versus the other 10 I just got? And if you all use the same headline, I'm not going to meet with any of them. You know what I mean? So that would be my best advice there.
Awesome. So now we are almost at the end of our podcast, and this really segment I really love, which is I call a quick fire round. There are a couple of questions I'll ask you. Don't think much. Just shoot what's the first thing that comes to your mind. The first question I have for you is, what's the one metric you are most obsessed about and that you keep checking on a daily basis?
Conversion rate.
Okay. What is the one process you wish you would have implemented earlier?
Profitability, focusing more on profitability than high-end revenue.
What is that one tool or an app you would want to keep if you had to decide to remove all the other ones from your store?
Inventory planner currently.
Awesome. And the last one, the biggest lesson you've learned the hard way in e-commerce operations?
I think the biggest lesson would be, I guess, keep it simple. More is not always better, and I think when you start in this space, you want 50 apps because they all do cool shit, and you start to learn that that's not the recipe for success.
Awesome. So Mike, this was super practical, super helpful, and you had literally dropped a ton of knowledge bombs. Before we wrap the episode up, any word of advice or any 2 cents you would like to share with our listeners?
No, not really. Just if you're into vitamins, supplements, nutrition, if you need help, if you need input on building an app, any of those, you can reach out to me, Mike at nutritionfactory.com, and I'm always here to help. I love helping people, so any way I can help, I'm here to help. Just like jumping on this podcast, it's fun,
No, absolutely. Thanks a lot, Mike, for being with us today. I'll drop all of your details in the show notes. Plus, people who are really into health, fitness, wellness, you can use the coupon code TSH30 at the checkout and get a 30% discount. Mike, just make sure you go ahead and create that coupon.
I'll make sure it's set up. Yeah, I got you.
And before we wrap up, a quick shout out again to our today's sponsors, Apploy Mobile App Builders. If you're a Shopify merchant who wants a mobile app that matches your storefront's UI UX, keeps your custom works, and supports the third-party app you already use without you paying heavy customization fees, then check out the links in the show notes. I've also included their AI app builder link where you can just drop in your Shopify store URL and it spits up your mobile app within 3 to 4 seconds, and you can check out how the app would actually look before it even goes live or before you even go ahead and install their app from the Shopify App Store. All the links are going to be in the show note. And again, if you ever decide to launch the app, the coupon code is the SASA for a 25% discount, or just use the direct installation link mentioned in the show notes so that the discount is auto applied. Now finally, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Do subscribe, do comments, share your thoughts. Do let me know who would you want to see on the next podcast episode. And if you want more operator-led breakdowns, and if you could find the sasup.com, all suggestions are welcome. Thanks again, guys. And this was the Shopify Merchants Edition, Season 1, Episode 1. And thanks a lot, Mike, for being on the show again. This is me, Yuvraj, signing off. Bye.
Thanks.